And we are now with our guest speakers, which is very exciting. We have in the room with us Sharon Connolly, and then online, and I'll come back over now to our user group. Let's come back in here. And in our user group, we should have online and ready to go. Daniel, are you there, Daniel? And Chris?
Yes.
Yes. Hello. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spotlight. Okay, and do we have Chris? Looking for Chris.
You do. Hello.
Excellent. Okay, add to spotlight.
Shall I come up there then?
Yes, indeedy. Add to spotlight. And I'm just trying to find Chris in the list. Here he is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start first with those that are online, and I just want you to do just a little bit of an introduction as to who you are so that everyone is familiar, because coming in as part of a new group. I'll start with you, Danielle. We'll move our way around.
Yep. So my name's Daniel Brown. I host the Microsoft Copilot user group, which is here in Adelaide. We've been running for a year, and our next meeting is tomorrow afternoon. And I also run the Microsoft M365 user group here in Adelaide. That's been for roughly about the last 17 years, with the exception of it was originally the SharePoint user group and then the O365 user group. I do everything SharePoint, Copilot, AI, and yeah.
Thank you. Moving over to Chris.
Hello, my name's Chris Gecks and I am in sunny Brisbane. Well, it's not very sunny today, but typically it's usually very sunny and hot in Brisbane. I run the Brisbane Microsoft 365 users group. That's been going for probably over a decade now. It's obviously gone through various different iterations. I run the Copilot group, and we are putting together a business-focused one as well in Brisbane, just to sort of capture on that as well, because there's a lot of really great content and helping get that message out there to people in the Brisbane community. I work primarily in cybersecurity and focusing mostly over the last few years on Purview.
Very good. And I'll pass on now to Sharon.
Hi everybody, I'm Sharon Connolly. I'm a PowerPoint MVP, and I'm a little bit different than most MVPs because I primarily work as a change manager. And one of the things that I do as a change manager in all sorts of organizations is that I help people to adopt their BAU lives, what they do all day, every day using technology. So I come at it slightly differently. My focus isn't the technology, it's enabling people to do their jobs with the technology. And I'm here really to talk about the change aspect so that everybody technical can get their knowledge to the end users, which is a challenge.
Good. And I've kind of already done a bit of an introduction to myself with running the user groups for Australia. So it's been about 9 years I've been running the adoption user groups now. Have various, forms of it on the way. So I am here to, I speak from the adoption and change management side of things in terms of being a specialist there. So we do have a few questions that I want to ask of the team, and I'm going to start with question number 2. What has been your biggest win, both personally and professionally, with AI? Let's start. I'm going to code the same order. How about that? Start from the top, move our way around. Daniel.
All right. So the question is, I suppose, is that echo coming from me?
Has anyone else still got a... No, we're not got an echo from you. No.
All right, cool. Apologies if I've got the fan going. We're here. We are getting the echo from me, unfortunately. My biggest win with AI certainly has been with Copilot and Azure AI. I also dabble in Azure AI, but certainly enhancing productivity gains, process efficiencies, and a lot more ability to do things with limited time, limited resources with Copilot. It's been an interesting journey for the last 18 months, but it's certainly been a very exciting journey in terms of what's been capable and really being able to utilize that in my day-to-day with content creation, reviewing, meeting notes, everything like that. It's just been a really big win in that sense. Professionally, yeah, sorry, that was just personally.
Just check in terms of echo, someone's saying echo.
Yeah,
is it
might be
fixed?
me.
I'm kind of swapping and turning a few things down to see if that helps. No. Sorry, Daniel, keep going. My apologies.
Yeah, no problem. And then the biggest one was getting some efficiencies with some client. We essentially gave them 3 minutes back per phone call, with the ability to get their customer data a lot quicker and to be able to essentially, I mean, long story short, it was an AI agent which could integrate with their data and provide them with all the content they needed before they went to the on-site stores and look for sales. So very big win on that.
Very good. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's been a lot around like the assistance that it can give you. Obviously, AI, whether it be Copilot, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, which I haven't actually logged into yet, but I'm sure we'll be talking about later. Is sort of around having that assistance. It's sort of like having like a PA that you can use with you at all times that can help sort of streamline tasks. I'm constantly running in a million different directions, and sometimes I do that to myself, but AI is certainly helpful to be able to help, I guess, streamline some of those thought processes and help take away some of those more, I guess, tedious tasks and operations that I might do on a daily basis. The other one for me is really around skills and development. It's a great area to sort of be able to start investing into around skills development, and really with sort of self-improvement as well. Like it can be a learning platform in itself. AI can be many things to many different people depending on what you're looking for, and so having some of their skills and development inside of that was good. Professionally with AI, it's an interesting journey. The first question that typically comes to mind in my area is privacy and around having that. So I guess it's a weird win, but it's great to give organizations have a different view and a lens when they want to use Copilot around security and around what data means to them. It's always a difficult conversation in data governance and security landscape and purview to sort of highlight the importance of data and having that structured and having visibility over that and having it classified appropriately. But AI really just brings that to the forefront and really just highlights that. So there's been some interesting wins from customers looking to try and roll this out from a technical perspective around just, I guess, either some of their maturity or even immaturity in some of these spaces within their data landscape.
Yeah, that's always the hard part. What about yourself? Last one, Sharon.
I think a completely different perspective, and for me, it's actually getting people to generally calm the farm a lot about AI. You go to all of these conferences and you see a supposed expert and talking about all of these amazing things, and I'm thinking, they won't do that. No, that's not true. That can't possibly be true. And there's all of this massive hype. And people have calmed down a little bit about how it's going to do everything for everybody. And with Copilot as well, really putting the spotlight on the security and making sure that the stuff is kept inside organizations. So I think for me, there is a general quietening of it. It's going to take over the world. It's not. It's driven by people, and it's a brilliant tool. Professionally, it's not where my expertise lies, but what I'm doing in the change management community is that change managers will roll out AI. They will have it as part of their project. So I'm enabling them. What I'm doing is I'm saying, guys, you're not going to know everything. You just stay one step ahead of all of your users. I'll stay one step ahead of you. You stay one step ahead of the users, and we'll take everybody in a journey. And I had more people book on my Copilot course than I've ever had anything else, probably 3 times as many people on my Copilot course than anything else that I've done. So it's great to have that interest out there. So that was cool.
Very good. Right. I suppose from my perspective on personal and professional, from a professional kind of standpoint, it's certainly turned a lot of, in terms of the win, that turned a lot of the 365 environment on its head, because there's a lot of things that people don't actually know. You know, we talk about dropping Copilot into Loop, and there's a lot of then conversations around it in channels or chat, or it's like, well, we're not using it in channels, or, you know, we don't use channels, or we don't use Copilot, or you can use it in Whiteboard or OneNote. It's like, I don't even know what those are.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a bit of that resurgence of an opportunity for people to upskill. And I'm particularly liking that, because it's what it's also doing is it's engineering some really great conversations around where is your information. You know, so it's been a mess, especially when it comes to Teams and channels. We've just dropped stuff in there. We don't know where it is. We don't know if we can even contain it. It's like, well, now might be the time to have a look at a bit of a cleanup. So from a professional standpoint, we're certainly starting to see that return on investment, hopefully getting a little bit of a kick in the behind to start seeing users come on that journey and take it seriously, because it's just a button that people don't have to push. So, you know, without AI, there's no reason for them to go push it. So we're starting to see some serious conversations around ACM and that community of, you know, what does it look like to actually train your users on something like this, because it's such a big behavioural shift in terms of the search side of it to the conversation. So I do like that. From a personal standpoint, man, am I having some fun with it. Yeah, well, I mean, I do cake decorating. Man, some of the things that I've been doing or asking, and even as an MVP, that kind of sits in the / personal professional, because we're, you know, evangelists, we do it personally. You know, we don't kind of do it necessarily professionally. It's sort of a fine line as MVPs, I think. You know,
You booked your trips, didn't you?
Yeah, I booked all my itinerary. I did it. It helped me with booking for Norway. I've got one for New Zealand that I've been doing. So I've been using it an awful lot across my own personal world to create, or creating, you know, pictures in a personal professional. It's even creating little things like icons and a client color. You know, it's like, I want to create a little icon that's a house that's in, you know, this particular hex color, and it's got this type of a hero, you know, Lego person, or you know, all these sorts of things then come into play. So, you know, I'm having a lot of fun with it from those professional. You know, I'm not going to necessarily be going into client wins and things like that, because it's really, at the moment, it's like, well, what are my wins as a specialist, and what am I doing? It's even things like tenders, and, you know, it's got to have 800 words. And those 800 words, of course, you know, I've got 1,200. And how do I make it smaller? Simple things like that. Okay, I'm going to pass back over now to you, Daniel. Do you have a client win story or any challenges that you can share with us?
The biggest win I said, or a very interesting win we've had, was the ability to have the agent save that time for the BDMs. That was an incredibly big win. The challenges there, obviously, was the data and getting the users up to speed on how to interact with Copilot, how to expect the information, what format to put it in, what format to put it out, and to introduce that into a team that hasn't had AI before, or even really the ability to utilize SharePoint in the way that, you know, high level search, you know, deep level search, deep level organization, but to be able to bring those client information details to the forefront for the end user in a very slick way that is integrated into their systems is an incredible win. You know, we can see that we actually have that saving, that metric. We can measure it. We can see how long it takes. We can see the wins. Very cool. And I suppose the opposite, well, not the opposite, but alongside that is the training aspect. To see people have that moment click is a massive win for us, to see that they understood how the AI sort of not operates in that sense, but how they can use it and gain their insights. Very big win on that. The other win that I've had in the AI sense is the ability to detect Opal, but that's a little bit different to what we're here today. But the ability or for AI to detect multiple different things far outside of the office is just a massive win for me, because it's just opens up the possibilities for so much in the future. But yeah, that would probably be my biggest one.
Daniel, you so have to put a link in. He's part of, it was on the Opal Hunter series on TV, on Discovery Channel, I think.
Yeah, it was last Thursday.
An AI bot to discover opals out in, and he's sitting there with his laptop in the heat, can't see his screen, covered in flies. He does some very cool stuff across this space, guys. I would highly recommend, you know, watching it in terms of the Outback opal hunters, isn't it?
Wow.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Outback Opal Hunters, it's currently airing on
It was
TV.
season 8, episode
Season 8, yeah.
3.
In the UK, it was season 12. I don't know why they just do that. If you did miss it on Thursday night, in about 6 to 9 months, we'll be on the 7 Mate as well with Azure AI.
Excellent news. So anyway, there's just a bit about how we
Yep, a
use
little bit of slide one, but yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Anyway, Chris, moving on. Client win, and challenges.
Yeah, I think from the biggest client win that I've had, because obviously working in the security space, having wins is very interesting and changes from the definition of what's classified as a win in security space. So I think being able to have that, as I was saying before, have that visibility and have that understanding of their data gave them something that they hadn't had before, and even looking at tools that they were using to do things, and as an example for looking at auto labeling documents and what a simulation could look like, because Copilot has visibility over that, they were actually able to use some of those elements and key things to see how impactful some of these decisions and changes might be across their data sets, because Copilot did have the ability to see inside of those data repositories. So they were able to simulate some interesting use cases and scenarios around what some of their data could look like if they made certain changes to it and applied certain tags, sort of to Daniel's point around the SharePoint management side of things. So for me, unfortunately, my wins aren't necessarily as exciting from a security side of things, but to me, that's that's exciting. I think some of the concerns or considerations that were had is the big one that I obviously come across is, okay, well, this is going to displace people, or what are we going to do with this cyber engineer now that Copilot for security or something's coming in and it's going to take his place? And it's always an interesting conversation to have, because Copilot is really just another tool for engineers and people to use. It's to complement what they do. It's not designed fundamentally to replace anyone or be there. It's really there to give people extra tools and availability and accessibility to have on it. And I think the other one that I see is, well, what if they get reliant on this? What if there's this dependence on this? And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily inherently a bad thing. It all comes down to how you use it and how it's operated and what you do with it. So it's interesting to see. And obviously it's a bit early inside some of those use cases to see how it's going to end. And as we've seen just with Copilot or AI in general, the journey that's happened over the last 18 months has been monumental, and this industry area products are going to change even more in the next 12 months, 18 months. We've sort of seen, even just from a Copilot perspective, what some of the roadmaps look like. There's over 14 overarching Copilot areas. There's a plethora of Copilots with inside those. If you can't find a Copilot, you can build your own Copilot, as we were saying before. So there's something in there for everyone, and it's just how you get in there and use that, which is really exciting, but also creates some areas of interest to see, because power can go both ways.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Chris was saying there from a change management perspective. And this is not just with AI. We've had this as many tools digitized over years. People believe that they're going to lose their jobs, but the message from leaders needs to be that this tool will allow you to free up time to do the things that you enjoy and that are very important as part of your job, like building relationships, having conversations, being creative. And that's a very important message that needs to come from top down, but they need to mean it, and they really need to make sure that that is heartfelt. But moving on to my wins, this isn't Copilot. I don't know what the tool was, but last week I saw a really exciting use of AI, and I love this when we have something technology based that impacts people with completely different jobs. So I'm working on a project at the moment, it's so exciting, in vets. So I'm surrounded by dogs and cats, and it's amazing. I am upgrading 250 vets to a new IT system all over Australia and New Zealand. And part of the new system has voice recognition. So what we demoed, we had a dog going into the consulting room, and the vet said to the customer and to the dog, "Do you mind if I record this conversation?" So they went ahead and they recorded the conversation, and she was chatting about, oh yeah, Fluffy's put on a little bit of weight, the ears seem good, all of the general conversation between the vet and the client. At the end of it, she pressed a button and it filled out the whole of the form. So the dog's weight, the health of the ears, all straight away. And for me, that comes to what Kirsty said, that starts to get people interested in technology. I've just seen it do something amazing. What else can it do? And this is again where I see things, where you mentioned whiteboard.
Yeah.
I showed Copilot and whiteboard and people went, I never even realised it was there.
Yeah, don't even know there was a whiteboard around.
Yeah, and forms as well.
Yes.
Oh, you know, there are things there where you show them how to be, and this is the change management side of it as well, for me, for the mere mortals, you show them how to get good at something that currently takes them a long time, and then they get interested, and then they start to snoop around, and before you know it, Mavis on reception, who's really scared of computers, has created herself a Copilot. You know.
Yeah. And yeah, right. And I mean, in terms of some of the projects and the things that it can do and the connections, you know, are great. But I'm also seeing, you know, a lot of businesses jump straight to the big, you know, because they want the big, but then they forget the little.
Yeah.
You know, they're spending all this money on licenses and they're forgetting the little. Or they're buying it for everyone. Is it for everyone? Maybe not. Or they're only buying it for a couple, but they're not really spending enough time actually in and doing a proper pilot. And for a decent amount of time, it needs more time than we used to in the past. You can't just do simple, it needs at least 11 weeks. So, you know, these short, sharp pilots.
Why 11?
They actually say there's an 11 by 11 in terms of its mindset. It takes you up to 11 weeks to start saving and seeing that return on investment of 11 minutes to get true value around the productivity, the sense of the feelings around the particular product and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, so it's in the work lab. There's a whole research report around it, the 11 by 11 moment. Which is really cool in terms of, you know, getting some of that feedback. So it takes a little longer, so our pilots need to go a little longer, and they need to be trained. I think one of the things that I'm actually seeing is, and where I'm getting engaged with some wins on some projects at the moment, is there's a lot of organisations that have actually had it, and they've had it for a year. They're all excited, and then they haven't been using it, and we're going to get rid of it. And then there's lots that are kind of going, but before we do that, surely there's got to be some value, because people are talking about it. Maybe we're not using it or using it properly, or we don't know. So then we start to see these aha moments, some very cool aha moments, just on the everyday stuff. They're kind of going, well, yeah, we're using it in Outlook, or yeah, we're using it in this. But once they start to understand the taxonomy around it, that's when we start to see some lift, because people don't understand the taxonomy around Copilot. What type of documents could you even ask for? They don't know. You know, they kind of just think, you know, all they're doing is asking a question about content, but they're not necessarily asking about holistic things, the higher level kind of processing. They're not thinking big enough more often than not a lot of the times. They're thinking down in the dirty day details. How do I get my next 5 days of, you know, I want to see what I've got for the next 5 days of meetings. They're not thinking a lot bigger in terms of what they could do with that, and converting it over into an email and sending it off and taking that information over, or recording off meetings and turning them into FAQs from meetings based on questions and answers that are people given. And it's all done and written, putting it on SharePoint making it really pretty for you. I'm working with, you know, HR departments, and, you know, they don't take it to the next step and the next step and the next step. And that's where those promptathons, where they go, don't think just the little piece. What can you do off the back of that and the back of that and the back of that to become one bigger holistic piece? So we're seeing some great wins Another one is that, that as Danielle's even saying, the AI first mindset. Often we're not thinking of it first to be able to save us some times where timing, we're not starting from there or helping us to get something as a baseline to even work off the back of. Now, whether it's a job description, for example, that we've had to create within the business, or simple things that go, well, here we go, I've got a really good skeleton with pretty much everything in that I can then build on, or plugging it into other environments. The biggest thing that they're seeing at the moment is people feel like they're cheating. So that's that senior leadership, HR, supporting people, making managers not go, hang on a second, but they're wasting and they're playing and they're cheating and they're not getting their job done, and we've got to change some of that senior leadership perspective around that. It's not, cheating. They've got their own fear around it, and we have to tackle some of that. I think that's kind of some of the things I'm seeing. I'm going to ask you a question now, and let's come back around to Daniel. How do you think it's actually shaping and reshaping the way that people are working? It's having both a big impact, both positive and negative. How is that making some adjustments, I think, to the way that we are doing things? Is it reshaping it in the way we approach it?
I mean, there's certainly almost like a propagation wave going out throughout the industries, throughout the business of how it is reshaping it. It's becoming even harder to sort of predict how it's going to reshape now. There is a lot of positive reshaping happening. And I think over the next 18 months, we'll see even more things with the agents come through, the automation of the agents, the trivial tasks, more of, rather than a large language model, we'll see a large action model where we can start to interact, like how Claude have done it. So you can now order flowers and use the internet without so much having to have an API. But it is a double-edged sword. I mean, we're going to see some impact in terms of the jobs and industries. I always say, or have been saying for the last 12 months, that AI won't replace jobs. It's only going to essentially replace people that don't know how to use AI. There's a big gap in terms of, and I think you touched on this, Kirsty, is how people feel like they're cheating at the moment. So generally speaking, I'm going to create a document. It's going to take an hour, and if I can get that done in 15 minutes, I've got that 45-minute plus time. And business is trying to figure out how to handle that because, well, they did the work, but they've got this extra time. Can they do more? Can they do extra? What does the new role of that actually position look like? If we do take AI into consideration, all of a sudden I don't have to spend a lot of time drafting tenders, drafting proposals, or figuring out what's next week, what's next month. It becomes, we're very upset at the moment. So I don't want to say how it's reshaping too much, but I just want to say that it is reshaping a lot. And I think where the dust settles, probably be the next 6 months of just where it has reshaped. I mean, we can see it, how it's reshaped now in everyday lives of how we create our content, how we consume our emails, how we do the whole meeting and all this sort of stuff. But I think the real value add is going to come in the next 12 months where we actually see it's going to start to reshape industries and businesses because we've got over that sort of what is it, how can I use it, where do I use it in, what scenarios. That's where we're at the moment. So I think, the next 12 to 18 months, we'll see a lot of reshaping of industries that we didn't even think of. I mean, it's touched every industry, every business, every idea, every process globally. So it's going to be a very new world in terms of what's on the other end. And we're only starting to see that now.
Yeah, thank you. Chris?
I completely agree with Daniel and what he was saying, and I think it's being presented to us in every aspect of our lives now as well. It's not just an enterprise thing anymore. Like, we're getting it in our consumer lives. Consumers are getting it on phones. They're getting it on laptops. They're getting Apple Intelligence. Obviously, Samsung released all their new phones, and the only thing they really said in every article was AI. It's getting pushed onto us everywhere now. So it's only a matter of time before that starts taking a stronghold on more of what it already has in enterprises, and people start looking at that. And as the generations shift and as things move, the people coming into the workforce are going to be more and more ingrained into this AI culture, and it's going to be something that organizations need to embrace, because I think if they don't, there's going to cause a lot of friction in workplaces, and there's going to be a lot of friction moving forward, because you see it everywhere. Microsoft's investing billions of dollars into AI, and it's not slowing down. This is not a short-term thing that Microsoft's going to do for a couple of years and it's just going to fade away like some of the other technologies we've seen over the years. This is something that every tech vendor is pouring copious amounts of money into, and it's only going to change and it's going to be transformed. I think, as we saw, if we looked at it 18 months ago, AI was almost unrecognizable to where it was when we looked at it in the AI tour and that recently. And I think in another 18 months, it's going to have transformed again and look something completely different. So that's really exciting in one way, but also that needs to be handled in a way that's tapered as well, because I think a lot of it is just sort of given to you around just try it, just use it, see what it does, just use it. There's not necessarily a lot of deep guidance or roadmaps around how to use Copilot or what it can do for you. It's sort of just like, here it is, go and paint a picture with it. So I think that's very rewarding, but it also needs to be tabled. And as we saw with DeepSeek around where that's going, everyone's going to start to create an AI soon, and that's going to have some considerations from an ethical standard, from a security standard, from a privacy standard. So it's going to be interesting to see how that landscape plays out, and how that might start to shift people's opinions around adoption and around how they interact or engage with AI. So it's going to be an interesting 12 months.
Thanks. Well, what you really want on a panel is you want people to disagree with each other. And as you were speaking, I'm like, no, I agree with that. No. But one of the things that Daniel said, I was thinking about something that happened a few years ago. There's a massive, gorgeous building just around the corner that I worked on, moving people from one building to another, the AMP building down the Circular Quay. And as we created that building, we created the workplace of the future. And in the workplace of the future, it was not about sticking your bum on a seat for 8 hours. It was about collaboration, communication. There were all of these little cubby holes and little beanbag areas where you could sit and have conversations. It was about quality of work, not quantity of work. I don't know how that has gone, this, activity-based working. I don't think that we're there yet, but AI and what we're talking about, doing quality work versus quantity work, is a journey that we're on. But I think it's going to take a while, because leaders are still, and I still feel quite often, if I haven't sat and worked from 9 to 5, I haven't done a day's work. But I don't think my kids will feel like that. They'll feel, yeah, I've achieved something in 15 minutes, I'm done. So I think that we are on a journey there. But I also want to point out, again, this 15 minutes versus, an hour. I don't find that it often saves me time, but I do get more done. I do get to dig deeper. I do get to probe further. I get to do, after the webinar, create the quick reference guide and the FAQs that I just wouldn't have time to do before. So I get more done. But my final bit on those is that with the deluge of information that is being thrown at everybody, we really need people like change managers, learning professionals, Microsoft ambassadors, AI ambassadors in an organization to filter and drip feed the information in a way down to the end users, to those normal people, that makes it meaningful, so that they start on their learning journey and they become excited by it. So however they look, we have to have gatekeepers, not because they can't have that information, not because it's being withheld from them, just because they will be overloaded And we need people to get really excited and then start their own learning journeys.
Totally agree. We should disagree.
Yeah,
So the one thing that I will say in all of this is it's still baby.
Disagree.
It's still baby, and I'm seeing many organisations not using it.
Yeah.
Many push back, and there are licenses that are sitting there, and they're going to rot, and they're walking away from the licenses, and they're not going to the next step. So many of them had a play stuck with IT at the moment. And they're not with the real people and not being trained how to, because that's where the action happens. If it's just sitting within your IT and you're just doing and you're just playing with it there, it's not going to go too much further. You've got to have it in that real application and help people on the journey. So the way that it's reshaping, that reshaping we look even back, for example, I remember when, my grandson was little and he walked up to the TV and touched it, trying to get it to do things for him. And it's like, why isn't it, moving or doing, or just like an iPad or a tablet or something like that? Didn't understand that our TV couldn't do that. Yet. In terms of that new way of working, and we're seeing the younger generation that are going to get in and do that conversational type model, or build it to just very easily as a plug and play agent to just get the information that they want that's going to be accurate, instead of the 1.23 million responses that you get on search, for example. They're going to get better at it as they come through, and we're going to see more of a shift as those that are in that schooling system or universities fly into businesses. So we're going to see a lot of frustrations from a challenge standpoint around AI, because it is diving into our personal worlds. As you said, it's going across everything you see it.
Absolutely. Peppers on there.
Absolutely.
You don't have to search for it.
So a lot of people will say to me, no, I don't use AI, I don't like AI. It's like, well, it's part of your everyday world and people aren't realising it. So we need to point out kind of, well, where is it? Did you see when you were at Woolworths, or did you see it when you, have you asked it through something here, or a bot? Have you spoken to Siri lately? Have you spoken to Siri and asked Siri to do something? It's effectively one big kind of AI bot, the mega bot world of. So, they think that it's all very scary, and I think that that's some of the stuff in terms of the reshape. When I'm talking to them within businesses, it's helping them to understand where they're already touching on it in the first place, and how it's already shaped their world without them even being concerned about it. Even in our banking, and where we're seeing it flowing through in terms of our banking, and in the most secure of spaces, and helping them to understand, well, what is secure and not secure. But that whole shadow AI, with shadow IT, shadow AI coming into play now. And as Jeremy was even saying, he said, is anyone not using it? No one put their hand up, kind of thing. Everyone was kind of using it in some way or another. But we're putting our information in secure locations. We're, taking internal, potentially proprietary information and chucking it in ChatGPT, and we're not educating people on AI. And that's a big failing at the moment inside businesses, because people are using it and they're not using it correctly. And they don't understand one from the other, or they've used Copilot Designer and they've said, I want to have a Lego lady and she's MVP with a microphone and she's wearing a cape and she's doing this and she's doing that and this kind of a background, blah, blah, blah. And then they go, I'm going to tweak it, but then it's a completely different picture.
It is, yeah.
It regenerates it every single time. So then they go out and go find, potentially, another app that's very specific to do with, and then they start loading up pictures that are actually proprietary, or they, so they're going outside to find the next best thing, and they're starting to investigate the next best thing. Copilot is still, it's got lots that it's absolutely doing, but there are of course others that are going faster or doing something different, so we have to then educate on inside our businesses what that looks like. So that shaping of the way people work, they're already doing a lot of it and they don't even realise. I think that's the biggest thing from a professional standpoint.
And going back to the Microsoft apps as well, is that it's starting a learning journey where people need to know more about. You can do more with it if you already know Excel and you already know PowerPoint and you already know Word. You can do a lot more with it. So I hope that it starts people's learning journeys, you know, into basic programming as well, with the tweaks that you have to do if you're more techie. It gets people just generally on a journey, which is very exciting for those who are just coming into the workplace.
Yeah, I think that it even goes to those that don't know Excel and, you know, things, because I'm seeing them going, they wouldn't know how to do conditional formatting, and it pops up with a, do you want to do conditional formatting and things that you can do. Conditional formatting and highlight the whole row. Oh my God, I love that one. Oh yeah, I love that one. You know, those are the sorts of things that I absolutely love. Do you know, they're trying to do the formula for it to highlight the whole row. It's tough, it's a nightmare, and it just does it for you. Now that's the stuff where it starts to eliminate some of the pain for the value work, and it can give you nice quality output on things that you just don't know how to do. So, but where I see that challenge also comes into play is they then think that you can do the same thing, bold the first column, and then you can go do it in Word, and it doesn't do it. Then they hit that block, and then they kind of go, well, this was crappy, I don't like it in Word, I can't use it, and they just stick to one product and play with it there. Or so there's a lot of challenges, there's still a lot of growth going on in Copilot. There's still things that are a bit broken. People need to have come from that mindset. It is evergreen, and it's constantly changing and evolving. And as Danielle said, it's from what it was a year ago to, you know, even 6 months ago. The growth,
every time you go in.
Yeah, the growth.
Yeah, it's a whole new product almost. It's completely different than what it was.
Yeah. And that's where we have to help our users understand that evergreen world a bit more, I think. And the fact that it's moving faster than the average.
Every time you teach it, every time you teach it, you get everything ready 2 days before, set it all up, ready to teach live, and then you go in there and, oh, okay, right, good, fabulous.
I mean, kind of leads. I mean, we sort of started on that conversation piece where I was going to ask, you know, what are those potential limitations and challenges that we're seeing then around Copilot and how the user can overcome them. And that's some of that stuff around the taxonomy. People don't know the mega verbs, for example, or the verbs that they could use. They don't know the tones that you could use. They don't know modifying the modifiers or the inclusive modifiers of, I want to have this in a friendly, caring, family-orientated tone, for example. You know, they don't know those sorts of things, and there's the education there around it. So some of those limitations are often from the individual, but it's not exactly well published. There's none of that really out there published on how, not a lot of it's published on how to, it's like how to do a good prompt, but not the taxonomy.
I think the challenge for non-technical people is you just find somebody who knows a little bit more than you to follow.
Yes.
Okay. So
like everything.
I follow Dan on SharePoint there. He knows more than me. I know more than most
Daniel
people.
Anderson, by the way.
Yeah,
we're talking
yes,
about.
yeah, Daniel Anderson over there. So you just find your little chain, just the people who know a little bit more than you, that you can learn incrementally. I stay ahead of my users, they stay ahead of their users, and then we all go on a journey. Because there's so much stuff on the site. I was watching it thinking, I'm not across all of that. I'm not up at 2 a.m. I don't watch. There's so much. Unless that is your full-time job, you cannot stay across it. So it's just having that filter about how can this make my life better, or the people that I'm working with every day, and I need to filter the rest of it out until I need it.
Yeah.
Which I don't like saying that, because I like to be open to all of it, but you have to filter it out because it's just too overwhelming.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no time for wine, is there?
Danielle?
In terms of what the limitations around AI, what we're finding with our users.
Limitations of Copilot and the challenges, and how can we have our users potentially overcome? Can we even overcome them? We might not be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect on a bit of a doom and gloom note, I suspect that's true for some of them. That we won't be able to overcome some of these challenges with users. It's out of their field. It's probably too techy. So being a realist in that sense. Some of the limitations, I think, is really around what it can access. I mean, it's all well and good to have M365 Copilot. It can go in and email and all that sort of stuff. But there has been a big limitation I've seen of my customers. They think Copilot is Copilot is Copilot. and they go to copilot.microsoft.com or whatever, m365.microsoft.cloud now, and they just expect it to be very mind reader. For example, the classic prompt, I want a proposal. Okay, very basic, one-liner. It doesn't help them. Sorry?
Will you marry me?
Yeah. That I see as a big limitation. I mean, because people what am I trying to say? Imposing their memory on the AI without actually communicating that memory to the AI, like we were saying earlier, where we just assume that it knows what we want. Write me a proposal. I need this, this, and this, but I didn't actually say that, so it's just generated some random proposal that looks like an hallucination, but it's not. It's really just stringing information together to try and best serve my needs. And that's a limitation I find, because I go to my customers or my users and say, you've got to be specific. You've got to know what you want. And it doesn't have to be 100% you know what you want, don't get me wrong, but you need to be able to frame it so the AI can understand at least what you want. And then from there, then start that refinement processes through the prompts. It's not a perfect responder at the moment, and I think that is a limitation. The other limitation, I think, is how people do impose their own personal memories over it. How we get over that limitation, I don't know. I think maybe we just do more exposure to AI, getting that more one-on-one time with the AI to see how it reacts to different prompts, different details, different outputs. Like, I mean, for example, a lot of people don't go, oh, and format this output as a table. That's a big one. Just, rather than just get a list of random data or a paragraph of data, we can output that data. So having that limitation, I think, it's a very different limitation, don't get me wrong, but it's a limitation from the human side of AI, where we're putting the human aspect, we're anthropomorphizing it too much, I think, and we're expecting that it can understand what we want based on the context of our emails and calendars and everything, and it does a good job at it, but I think at the moment our expectations are not in line with the reality of AI, and that's a big limitation on our end.
Yeah.
You've got to try and realign that.
Yeah. Chris, what about you? What are you seeing as those limitations and challenges with using Copilot?
Yeah, like it's kind of the same as what Daniel said. I think because we're getting so much of it in the consumer landscape that it sort of gives this unrealistic expectation of what it can do and what it can achieve. And that's not saying that it won't be able to achieve that one day, but I think it needs to be taken in metered doses, and I think it needs to be done methodically. And I think to some of the comments there, it doesn't help that we're being bombarded with copilots. Like there's Copilot, just in the Copilot landscape, there's so many of them. They're all named Copilot. It's very overwhelming. I find that to be a limitation because users don't know which one to use, what they've got access to, where it is, how to use it, which one to plug into. They just sort of get bombarded with that. And I think it kind of happened with other things as well. There's always going to be cohorts of users who are scared of it and don't want to use it. It was the same as the cloud. There are still people that run on-premises as data centers because they think they're more secure than the cloud. You're always going to have people that think that they don't want to trust it or don't want to use it because Big Brother's watching or something's going to happen, or it's going to be Terminator all over again. Skynet's going to come. And the reality is we've probably already got it. We just don't get to see it yet. So it's being able to take them, because I think they're getting all this from the media pushed onto them around what it is and what it can be, and it's this overarching Skynet thing. But in reality, it's not anything like that, and nor will what we have today ever evolve into that. That's not saying we won't ever end up with a Skynet. I'm sure they exist already, but it's certainly not going to be the same thing that we're talking about here today, and what users are engaging with today. That's going to be something very different, and I think it's very interesting. Obviously, Elon Musk recently showcased his robot army that he's building and all the other components that are evolving off the back of this AI LLM movement. So it's going to be very interesting to see where it evolves, and I think that's going to play into some of that around the advantages and disadvantages of that and how people use it, adopt it, understand it, and interpret it.
Great.
I think I did that one.
We kind of did. Yeah, you came first, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's right. So those are limitations and challenges. I mean, I've already kind of touched on a few of them throughout the conversation. I think that there's some real frustration around things going on and off with Microsoft. As quick as you can do something, it then gets turned off because it's not working or it's doing unexpected results, and then it's back on again, and knowing when it's on or off can be a real challenge. And you know, with things then not returning a result, that some of the wording in terms of the result that it might give you if it's not working doesn't necessarily help. At first it was, can't do that, but you'll find information online to be able to do it, kind of thing. We're not getting that even now. It just sort of throws up a we can't do. You know, and I understand why, because a lot of the content online isn't even up to date to be able to support it from a health standpoint. And some of that integration into the suite, that taxonomy that's shifting and changing, and we often don't know what it is. So that then becomes a bit of a limitation of what we can do, or we think it can do so much bigger. You know, it wasn't that long ago someone said to me, so if I ask it to sort all of my emails and put them into this particular folder, will it do it? It's like, well, no. People are thinking bigger, but it's not there yet. Whereas now we can actually say someone who's, you know, a particular person, and we can put that now into a folder. That's changed. That's only a recent thing. So it is evolving, and people aren't, I suppose, finding out the things that they can do along the way. And it's hard sometimes for Microsoft to keep us up to date on some of the little things that might come along for the average user. So the ACM component is more important, I suppose, than ever. And we're not seeing, people don't spend a lot of money on the ACM and training and driving forward and education. That's going to get the most out of it. So, you know, some of those limitations and challenges, and with agents, it's going to be a bit of a game changer on what you can get to, or the information's all in the wrong spot, or it's all outdated, or and they haven't done any architecture or information management before. So it then just shows up a mess and they think it's all broken, or it's showing information that it shouldn't and then they think it's broken. And so there's a lot of things that come into play on compliance and governance. So it's taking organizations longer than in the past, I suppose, to sometimes roll it out or get it ready. So there'll be some longer projects, and by the time they come around to doing exactly that, it will have evolved even more, and they're going to start and restart. So I say, just roll it out and then start just tweaking, guys. Just tweak it, because it's going to be constantly tweaked anyway. I think it's probably one of the bigger challenges. We talked about pilots not there, not dealing with senior leadership is a real challenge, bringing them on board.
I think it's a challenge because they can take it away. So
yes.
So an organisation can say, we've tried it and we're not using it anymore. I still regularly do a lot of workshops where I'm teaching people in PowerPoint how to line up 4 circles. Okay? I'm still doing this. I'm still teaching people how to press alt and equals. Yeah, alt and equals in Excel to add things up. Yeah, I am still doing this.
Basics.
All of these absolute basics that I have been doing for 30 years now. I am still doing this, but when organisations are not training and have never really trained the basics, but the difference is they won't take PowerPoint away from people. Just because you're not using the functionality, they won't say, well, you can't have Outlook.
Because it's not a separate license.
Because people have got it, and the way that they used to have it, when it used to come in a box with the manuals and the discs and everything. Once you'd got it, you got it. Whereas with Copilot, they can say you're not using it, you're not having it anymore.
Yes.
And I think that's
a button you don't have to click on if you don't want to, basically.
But the not using it is no different than me and my microwave. I press one button 30 seconds, 60 seconds, not like eight minutes.
Yep.
8 minutes to heat up a chili. I don't know what any other button is on there because I get by with that. And that's no different apart from the fact that you're not taking my microwave away because I pressed one button. Whereas if I only use Copilot to write a heading for my newsletter, you're probably not going to give me a $500 license for it.
Yep. I totally agree with you there. And that whole button of not having to push it, the fact that it just sits there, and they've got to have a reason. It's got to be that AI first mindset to go to it to see if you could create something from that first before you start building it all on your own, and finding other ways to embed it in your everyday. And there's not that many people that I'm seeing, unless you're passionate or you're AI early adopter, who are truly embedding it into everything that they're kind of doing. And to see that value output and high quality value output, because it's there to work alongside you, not for you. Yeah, so it's here as the and people think it's going to do it all for you. And as you said, Danielle, it's like they think that they just ask that limited question instead of saying you don't walk up to your coffee your barista and go, I want a coffee, and walk off. It's not going to help any. So that conversational stuff is just not built in everyday work. Even when we're searching inside our environment for a document, it's usually a couple of words. We're looking for this particular PowerPoint maybe on this date, and we're limiting what we're saying in search, and it is not search. So that search mindset has to be literally blown up and changed. Because unless we do something about that, in my opinion, that's where it's all going to fall apart, because people aren't doing it correctly. We've really got to come at it from a different perspective. We've got a few things that are actually coming through in our chat as well. I'm just going to ask one more question of these guys, and we'll come back around and have a look. And if anyone's got questions, more than happy to answer with the panel if you want to put it through. What do you think in terms of organizational culture, in terms of successfully adopting these tools?
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think we've said it before, is the AI first mentality. But I want to sort of point out, we also need to define what that means as well. Rather than just saying, oh, we're going AI first with everything. Is that a good idea? Probably not. Where can the AI produce those advantages? Where can you get those savings? Where can you get ROI? Just to sort of go hardcore into it is a bit, difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I think it has to be a buy-in from the entire business. Like usually, as you've said, typically programs or functions have been adopted by individual parts of the business. It's either an IT-led project or it's a business-led project. But this really needs to be taken, to your point, from a top-down approach. Like it needs to have the buy-in from the entire organization for it to be successful, because as you've said, it is a button. But turning on the button can have just as many effects as not turning on the button. So it needs to be done in a way that has people taken on essentially a journey, because it's not like, to your point, it's not like Exchange where you would pick it up off the shelf in the box and you'd open it up and you knew you had this version for the next 3 years, and you had a defined product life cycle. You knew you were going to get a new shiny box in 3 years time, and it was going to have a new CD or key in it that you could use. The history and the roadmap for AI is really unwritten in a way. Like we do have a roadmap, but I think that roadmap is still being articulated as we go on that road. It's certainly not definitive by any means. So having that transparency across the organization, I think, is key for successful adoption, because it's a journey that everyone has to take. It's a journey the users have to take. It's a journey the business has to take. It's a journey that your IT team has to make. Your your security team, your governance team. As everyone said here, this product is not insular in nature. It touches everything. It has vast depth and breadth, and having the right controls, mechanisms, understandings, learnings, rules of engagements are going to be really key for successful adoption.
It's part of a bigger culture change, which is generally about trust. So this is where we have forced on us the working from home from COVID, and now people being forced to come back into the office because people don't trust them to do the work at home. We've got the quantity versus quality, and to effectively use AI or any tool, you have to give permission for people to play. So it has to be okay that you played around with it for 4 hours and you achieved nothing. You learned a lot, but there's nothing that you achieved. And I think that the permission or the enthusiasm for AI comes with a lot of other cultural changes in the workplace, fractional roles, people coming in as consultants, more of the entrepreneurial journey, so many parts, moving parts that have to all come together into a sort of a sweet spot, top-down leadership to enable that, and a whole different way of working for it to really take off. And there will be organizations like, you know, if we think about, I watched the videos, probably 20 years ago now, when we watched the agile videos from Spotify and things like that. There'll be those people will be doing those videos that we look back on in 20 years that spoke about the early adopters of, you know, trusting their employees to use AI and all of the other tools and new working methodologies. And now we look back at something like agile. It's like, yeah, well, who doesn't work like that? It was new. It was new and it was weird that people sat and had meetings on beanbags with post-it notes all over the place. And now it happens all the time. And AI will be something that happens all the time, and it will be normal in the future. And I'll probably still press my microwave button 16 times to heat up a chili.
I hear you. I'm the 30-second, you know, press the button too. Why not? A cup of tea. I never get a chance to drink my cup of tea. 30 seconds are awesome. You know, for me, I suppose in terms of some of that organisational culture, and I've spoken about it where, you know, Christian Buckley had asked sort of this question of us on the panel, and which Daniel Anderson was on as well, in terms of some of that organisational culture. And I kind of wanted to hear really, you know, Sharon sort of take on, I suppose, you know, you really diving in and dealing with a lot of org culture too. You know, for me, it's, you know, we talked about that, you know, that trust factor, really big one, but a learning organisation, and we don't see a massive amount of learning organisations that are truly looking at that, you know, that transformational where they're giving time up for learning. And they really got it embedded as part of the program. It's even embedded into the KPIs in terms of digital adoption. I know I see organisations that are really into this actually have it fully embedded into their KPIs in terms of digital ways of working and embracing it, and the courses around it and the things that they actually offer, that they get the certifications, or they recognise their change champions and they get certifications and can put it on their resume, for example. You know, those learning businesses are different. It's different in the way that they work in the transformation. And I've worked with so many that say, we really want to do AI. And they start to talk to them, and literally more than 3/4 are paper-based in terms of all of their forms and, you know, out there and client facing, and they haven't even gone through that transformation journey. Yeah. And it's like, well, you got years to get to the point where you're rolling out necessarily kind of AI, when you don't want to use Teams with your staff. You're not trusting them to work from home. They're not even hybrid. Everyone has to come to the office. And now all of a sudden, you want to use AI. It's like, well, we want to use AI. It's like, you are nowhere near ready. Hang on a second, what have you still got? You still got your servers, you know, on site. And it's like, right, okay, you're on a long journey, and what does that journey, you've got a lot of change coming, and how are you going to prepare your users, and what cultural shift? Because if you've sat in that state for this long, that is not your natural state to now be jumping forward and fast. You've got a step-by-step process to get there. So that org culture, huge impact. And I have to say, I see it a lot with the heavy family-based businesses that are, or really embedded in. Yeah, the Lotus Notes, everyone's kind of, doing the Lotus Notes. And it was, people hung on to that for, oh man, they hung on to Lotus Notes hard, didn't they? It's the same thing all over again. It's that moving from the server, going to the cloud. We're seeing now AI, I think, putting a bomb under a lot of those businesses to go, we are now really falling far behind on our competitors. So I'm seeing a lot of migrations to the cloud right now. And I'm going right back to documents and how do I share a document all of a sudden. I don't know about you, but I'm seeing a lot of that, a lot, Sharon.
Yeah, I'm doing a whole bunch of onboarding to be in the cloud as well. Yeah.
How do we share a document? What's the difference between OneDrive and
SharePoint
Teams and SharePoint? And what's the difference?
What's a channel?
What's a channel? But
when do I use a channel?
this brings us to the broader question of change of any type. And what I'm seeing, because change management is still not BAU in a lot of organisations.
Second-class citizens?
Yeah. If they hire us, we do okay.
Yes.
But it's not, you need a project manager, you need a BA. You don't necessarily have a change manager. It's becoming more commonplace in Australia, not in other places in the world. But the pressure on change managers, not on Copilot or any type of technology transformation, is about making sure that the change is leader-led. So the change manager doesn't do the work. A good change manager enables the leader to lead the change, and also to figure out ways that we can measure our success. So what does success look like? And Copilot, we've got adoption stats in there, but what exactly does that look like? And measuring those stats is important, because you need to ask questions in a way that proves that the as is and the to be is a meaningful metric for that business. So it's about taking people on a journey led by their leaders and then proving that it's been successful. And it doesn't matter whether you start that with AI or you end that with AI. If you start to do change well, even if that change is move the coffee cups from the top cupboard to the bottom cupboard, change the way that we go into the car park, change the way that we swipe in. If organisations start seeing change done well, then it's easier for any change to be adopted, whether that be AI or
even the broken stuff. I've had, how many times have we had stuff that's completely broken? But we put out a really nice guide and we've let them. It just looks like it's a normal part of the process. You just click here, click here, and you do it, and it just looks like it's all seamless. That's what good change management actually looks like. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I'm more than happy if you want to raise your hands. You've got questions for the panel at all. So there's a few things, so everyone's kind of
We've got a
chatting.
Lotus Notes cohort.
Yes, we do.
Everybody's showing
We do
their age.
have
/.
I don't know. I've been keeping a bit of an eye. I didn't see anything that
I
was...
think we've got comments. I don't think
the
we've got
comments, not
questions.
necessarily a lot of questions. I don't think anything went into Q&A. I didn't think so.
I will just add a quick comment while we check that out is, well, AI is incredibly new. I mean, we've never had this technology ever before. So literally the next minute we're going to have in time, we're going to find out more. We've never actually had it before. The other point I want to make is also we've had fire for how many million years and we still burn our fingers. So we're still going to, it's very fresh.
That'll be me. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, expect, and I don't want to dwell on this or sort of overstate it, but we are going to singe our fingers every so often with AI moving forward. It's not unexpected and it should be expected. Expect for those, sometimes, yes, those gremlins that do come out and raise their head, because sometimes we light the fire wrong, we burn our fingers, the log rolls. It's going to happen, unfortunately. But I think in your change management plan, your adoption plans, if you cater for this, it's a lot more easier to deal with as well. You expect the unexpected, so to speak, is the old cliche saying.
Yep, absolutely. So then, any questions? I haven't seen any questions in chat yet. Back up. Just to double check. Same thing.
Just some good funny comments in there.
Yeah,
but I
just
didn't
lots.
see any.
No, I didn't see much more. If there's no more comments or questions that you want to ask of the panel on how to potentially tackle any of it, we'll go into some of the final stuff. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate you coming along and joining us in the session. And I will just